recording, so let me restart with what I just said. By the way, Mrs. Siddig's on our live, but it's because I'm on her computer because I'm going to need to share my screen later. Besides the point. Anyway, so we're making a timeline today, and a timeline shows us like the start to the end of a certain period. Isaac said it shows us chronological order of events, like this, then this, then this, then this, because that is how our story is. That is our story structure this week. It goes by dates and events of what happens. So right now, we're going to be looking through our story and we're going to be finding dates. But I just don't want a date. I want the event that happened on that date. So if you see an event and a date, raise your hand and we're going to put it on here and we're going to timeline out this story. Miss Mia, your hand is up. You have to be nice and loud though so our people at home can hear us as well.
2 decades after pioneers began migrating to the Wild West, the U.S. government in 1861 agreed to the construction.
All right, so I need the date and I need the event. So you said 1861. What happened in 1861?
The construction of a transcontinental railroad system that would link California with the.
All right, so you're reading exactly from the book. I don't want you to read exactly from the book. I want you to say in your own words what happened in 1861. In your own words, tell me what happened. Olivia.
In 1861, the U.S. government agreed to the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad.
Yes, U.S. government agreed to make a I'm spelling this wrong, so don't look at it. Transcontinental Railroad, okay? That's what happened. The government agreed to it, okay? In our own words, because we don't want to read that whole paragraph. I don't want to write a paragraph. I just want to be in my own words. They agreed to make a transcontinental railroad. Before we go on to our next date, what the heck is a transcontinental railroad? Someone remind me. It's not just a regular old railroad. There's something important about it. What's important about a transcontinental railroad, Dylan?
It goes across the country.
Yes, it spans the continent. And which way? North, south, east, west. It's going across the continent. It goes from what direction to what direction? What span? Someone tell me the two things. Oh, well, raise your hand, Ethan. Caden?
Northwest.
No. Sorry.
East-west.
East-west. Remember, most people are living in the east. But 2 decades have gone by now, and people are still heading west, getting the free land from the Louisiana Purchase. They're trying to strike it rich, yada, yada, yada. So the government, 1861, they're like, you know what? It's been 20 years. Let's build a railroad. So that's what they decided to do in 1861. Let's build a railroad. That's when they decided, good idea. Transcontinental, spanning the continent. Okay? Now, I need another date. What is something else that happened? I need the date and the event. Bryden? Oh, well, then where's your hand up? Just wait. Oh, well, do you have a date? Okay. Well, then that's fine. Amia.
Then in 1863, the Central Pacific Union Pacific Railroad technically agreed to build the coast-to-coast link.
Right. So in 1863, that would be pretty close to 1861. Everyone can see I put a little bit of gap here. 1862 would be in there, but there's nothing that happened in 1862. So Union and Central Pacific decide to work together to build the railroad. So these two companies, remember, is the Union Pacific and Central Pacific. They're two different companies, but they're like, yeah, let's do it together. But there's something else really important that they did together before they started. Does anyone know what else they did when they were like, let's do it, shaking hands, we're going to work together? But they had to do something together before they actually were able to start. Does anyone know what certain thing they had to do? It's in the book. What certain thing did we have to do, Olivia?
Agree.
Well, they already agreed. They had to do something together. Jaden?
A ceremony.
No. Sorry. Dylan?
Hire workers.
Nope, not yet. Mia?
In February 1865.
Not yet. Nope. It's something that happened in 1863. When we talk about 1863, we are in paragraph 5. Blah, 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 blah. Union Pacific and railroad tycoons agreed to build coast-to-coast link. The Union Pacific headed west from Nebraska, blah, 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 blah. The two companies mapped out their routes. Can they just both let's just build the railroad and start building? No, they have to create a map. They have to know who's going what way, what towns are going through, and all this stuff. So they agreed to work together to build the railroad, and they mapped out their routes. Mark, what's up, sir?
No, I was going to say for the next one.
Okay, Mr. Mark, what is our next one? So far we have 1861, 1863. What is another date and event that happens, Mark?
Well, it's not a specific day, but it says February 1865 that they sent Chinese men, 50 of them, to help build the railroad.
Yes, so in February... Are you okay? Okay. So, you scared me for a second. In February 1865 is when the first 50 Chinese begin work on the railroad. Right? That is when they first start. Because remember, 1861, we're going to build a railroad, everyone. 1863, someone finally gets around to being like, yeah, let's make a map. 1865, remember the one guy that was in charge, Charles Cracker or whatever, he was like, oh my gosh, we're never going to finish this. I need more help. I need more workers. And that's when he found Chinese men, and he got the first 50 of them in 1865. What is our next date and event, Landon? Ooh, there's something that happens before that. I don't want to go to 1869 yet. It's at the bottom of paragraph 7. It's an important thing. Blake?
By the end of 1865, more than 6,000 Chinese workers.
Right. End of 1865. More than 6,000 Chinese workers are on the railroad. Okay, so these two are really close together because so in February, there was only 50 Chinese workers. And then 10 months later, there's 6,000. That's a lot. All right, now there's two more specific dates that happen within our story, okay? So what is something else that happens in our story? Bryden.
The Union locomotive stood from one side and Central Pacific from the other.
1869. There's an actual date that was on the first one, and it's May 10th. May 10th, 1869. Railroad gets what?
Done.
Gets completed. I remember they said, done. All right. Then there's one more date that happens. There's something that happened. That's just another detail from our story that happens. Dylan?
On April 27th, 1869, Central Pacific crews by then 90% Chinese laid 10 miles of track in a single
Right.
day.
They made that record in April 27th. They laid 10 miles of track in one day. This is just another thing to tell us, to say how, awesome and instrumental the Chinese were. So let's go through this again. All right.
Miss Kneifel,
Yes.
you're forgetting one thing.
What?
In the very beginning, you know how it is kind of like foreshadowing May 10th, 1869 when it
May 10th. May 10th is when it's completed. That's what they did. They shook their hands and made the spikes things. It's at the end.
Oh, I didn't see it.
All right, so 1861, the government's like, yeah, let's create that transcontinental railroad that's going to span the United States. 1863, two companies finally decide to work together and map out their route. 1865, the one guy's like, oh, snap, I'm never going to finish this. I need more help. He hires Chinese workers. By the end of 1865, we have a ton of Chinese workers, tons and tons and tons. In April 27th, just a small detail that they made a record that they were able to lay 10 miles of track in one day. May 10th, 1869, the railroad is completed. Woohoo! But look at all this empty space right here. Let's make an inference, even without our book telling us what is happening from 1865 to 1869. What is happening? I should see all hands up. What is happening during this time? Caden? Right. All of this is railroad 1866 this happened, in 1867, 1868. We still know that the railroad's being built, right? Because it didn't happen. It didn't stop for 4 years. So we know just based off of from the story that all of this empty space here where we don't have dates to fill in, the railroad is being worked on. Olivia.
So they were on the road for 4 years.
Well, probably more like 1863 to 1869. So the entire span of the Transcontinental Railroad, the first Transcontinental Railroad, took from 1861 all the way to 1869. That's an 8-year process, okay? Does everyone understand how that works? Even though they weren't building anything from 1861 to 1863, it still started in 1861, okay? So that is how long it took for the first Transcontinental Railroad to be made. So that was chronological order. That was sequential order. There's a question going to be on your quiz about that tomorrow, okay? Now we're going to switch gears and do something different, okay? I need Miss Abigail to come erase this for me. And I'm going to put something on our screen. Everyone needs to, right now, you need to have a tab open with the book, and you need to have a tab open with your homework from last night as well. Please. Well, you're going to have to figure it out. It wasn't homework, technically. It was your e-learning day assignment. So, I need tab open with the story and your assignment from yesterday. Yes, Landon. Why don't you look instead of ask? Just look. I know. I want you to open it because we're going to go over it. My goodness. We're going to answer these questions together, okay? It's just really big. All right.
Miss Kneifel,
Yes.
did you already grade mine for this
I
homework?
have looked at everyone's, but right now we're just worried about.
Okay, I was just wondering. Okay.
I have not assigned grades for anything. Hey! Shh, my goodness. We have to get through stuff. All right. So, Mrs. Kneifel, I looked at everyone's and it turned in I haven't necessarily assigned grades. And once again, I'm going to let you know I'm not, for the most part, that impressed with our answer. Some of you guys totally rocked it once again with radar, but other of us didn't. So we're going to do it again today. We're going to be answering these questions together. So you should have your own answer open because if you did a good job answering the question, guess what? You could just read off your answer when I'm asking questions. Or you can also have the story open. That way you can look for details. So question number 1. What do you need, Landon? Yeah, you didn't. Okay. And I told you that yesterday, that way you had time to fix it before today. And you clearly did not do that. So you're probably not going to earn all the points. That's why I told you yesterday you did not do what I wanted you to do. Anyways, question 1. What jobs did the Chinese workers do to complete the railroad? Well, first off, we know the first step of radar is what, Connor? No. Yes, restate the question. So that's what I want to do. Mrs. Kneifel wants to restate the question. This is a really good one to just make a sentence without even giving away an answer. You know how Mrs. Kneifel loves to do that. So not saying one of the jobs was blah, 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 blah. I just want, what jobs do what is that? I don't know what that is. What jobs do the Chinese workers do to complete the railroad? Mia, what do you think? All right, so I like that you said dangerous, but I want to add that later, okay? So I'm going to say the Chinese workers did blank jobs to help complete the first Transcontinental Railroad. I'm going to add that extra little part. I'm going to change this to blue. That way we know what we're talking about. What word can I put here? Instead of dangerous, because not every job was dangerous necessarily. What job, or what word could I put here, Dylan? Yeah. All right. Why do I keep on putting work instead of workers? So the Chinese workers did a lot of jobs to help complete the first transcontinental railroad. I could have just put railroad, but I put transcontinental because it's not just a regular railroad. It's the transcontinental railroad. Perfect. So we restated the question without even giving away an answer yet. So our lovely thing, you know, we's going to be nice and long. Mrs. Knife loves a nice long answer. So how would I start it out? I want to talk about a job. How could I start out my next sentence? Olivia.
Some of the jobs are.
Hold on. Some of the jobs, let's restate it again. The Chinese did, instead of some of the jobs are, I want to say what jobs? Some of the jobs the Chinese did were, Olivia, give me one job, just one.
They hung from rope straight over the edges of cliffs and tapped holes into the sides of the mountain and insert dynamite.
Okay, time out. You're giving me so much information. Remember, you also kind of want to do some in your own words, okay? You don't just want to copy paste an entire paragraph because then it's just, you didn't really write anything. So anyways, instead of saying some of the jobs, let's say one of the jobs, okay? Let's talk specifically about the job you're talking about. One of the jobs the Chinese did was hanging from, let's say, mountaintops to tap the mountain with what? There was two things they tapped mountains with. What was one of the materials, Bryden?
Dynamite.
With dynamite, or what was the other one? It was a really big word. Connor?
It was like
Nitroglycerin, which I don't know how to spell. Okay, so one of the jobs the Chinese did was hanging from mountaintops to tap mountains with dynamite and nitroglycerin. Wow, snap. We talked about one job, but we added a ton of text evidence because we talked about how it's called tapping a mountain, not just blowing a hole in the mountain, but you're tapping the mountain, and they're using dynamite and nitroglycerin, which is tons of text evidence. Woo, woo. All right, so boom. Now let's talk about other jobs. And if you're like Mrs. Kleifel, I don't know what other jobs, go to paragraph 9 on page 272. It tells us tons of jobs. Let's say some other jobs the Chinese did were blank. There's a ton. So, Landon, tell me one job the Chinese did. I said they carry dirt in wheelbarrows. Carry dirt in wheelbarrows. All right, what's something else that they did, Amia? We already talked about the nitroglycerin. It's already on the board. Jaden.
They chopped trees.
Chopped trees. Yes, they did. I think, Mark, tell me what's another job they did?
Carrying iron and building the tracks, and I already stated like 10 of them.
Carrying iron. Carrying iron for the tracks. Connor. We already have wheelbarrows. It's already on there. Wait, literally says, we're carrying wheelbarrows for old dirt. Mia. And grading hillsides. We're going to end it there because that's plenty of jobs. Grading hillsides, just making it all the same like level. So we have, let's see how many we've listed. So they tapped mountains. 1. Carry dirt in wheelbarrows. 2. Chop trees. 3. Carrying iron for tracks. 4. Graded hillsides. 5. So we listed 5 jobs. Does that answer the question? Yeah, listing 5 jobs is plenty. So now, what is the last thing we need to do? What do we need to do, Haley? Yeah, we need to end it. So let's do that because we've answered the questions. So I'm going to reread what we have so far while all of you are thinking of a good conclusion sentence. What jobs did the Chinese workers do to complete the railroad? The Chinese workers did a lot of jobs to help complete the first transcontinental railroad. One of the jobs the Chinese did was hanging from mountaintops to tap the mountains with dynamite and nitroglycerin. Some other jobs the Chinese did were carrying dirt in wheelbarrows, chopping trees, carrying iron for tracks, and grading hillsides. Cool. We have definitely answered the question, but we can't leave it up. We can't leave it there. We have to do. Wrap it up. We got to wrap it up. What is the good way we could end this? Remember, it's when we're ending it, we are basically restating the question again in a different way. So, would anyone, maybe someone I haven't talked to today, like Abigail or Abby or Ethan or Haley or Logan, anyone?
Abigail or Abby?
Abigail? Abby. There's two. Anyone want to tell me how I should wrap this up? How I should make it really good? How I should end it? Ethan, tell me what I should write. Perfect. Those are some of the jobs the Chinese workers did to help complete the what? Transcontinental Railroad. Wow. That's a great answer. Oh my gosh, I'd be obsessed if you gave that answer. And really, it's all straight from the book. 2 sentences were just saying the question again. 2 other sentences were actually listing jobs. That's it. That's all it takes. And this would be an amazing answer. Does anyone have a question on this question? A question over this question? Mia? I'm asking if you have a question on question 1. And then we're going to go to question 2. I'm not going to go to question 2 before we finish question 1.
Can you stay there for a minute, please?
We're going to do question 2 next. So, what? I can't hear you when you mumble. I can't hear you. And I don't even know what you're talking about. So anyways, this would have been a really great answer. And I'm not saying some of your answers weren't great. I was reading through a lot of them, and lots of you guys did have good answers. But some of you guys wrote me 1 sentence. And for the 100th time, 1 sentence is not good enough. 1 sentence is not using radar. Okay? 2 sentences isn't using radar. We have to use more effort. Mrs. Kneifel cannot handle life with you guys slacking. It is the 22nd week of school. It is day 100. We've been practicing radar since like the first week. So we should definitely be better at this by now. So that's why we're practicing some more. We're going to head on to question 2. And we're going to try, we're going to try to answer question 2 together. And question 2 had 2 questions within it, but it was all in one. So you should have no problem getting length on this question because it literally even had 2 parts. So, in what ways were the conditions difficult for the Chinese workers? Don't tell me they weren't difficult because I just told you they were. I said, in what ways were they difficult? Did they let these difficulties affect them? So, we need to first restate our question. And this is another good one where we don't even need to answer it yet. I just want to restate the question without giving away the answer. Angelina, do you want to try? Okay.
The conditions were difficult for the Chinese workers because.
All right, so I'm just going to cut you off before you say because, and I'm going to say the conditions were difficult for the Chinese workers, period. I'm just going to tell you straight out, they're difficult. Then my next sentence, I'm going to start telling you why, okay? So the conditions were difficult for the Chinese workers, period. They were, all right? Now I'm going to say blank ways. One way it was difficult was what? Someone tell me, why was it difficult one way, Olivia?
When they're putting the dynamite in and not being able to pull up quick enough, so then they would fall to the corners below.
All right, so I'm going to, one way it was difficult was because the jobs they were doing were very what? Instead of saying about being blown up and falling into a gorge, let's just sum it all up. The jobs they were doing were very what, Abby? risky and dangerous. All right, that would be a difficult thing, you know, because the jobs they were doing weren't just like shoveling snow, you know, like they were doing some hard jobs. So that's one way that they were difficult. There's actually, I want everyone to go to page 272, and there's a quote from the book that I want us to find that will really help us talk more about how they were dangerous and risky. On page 272 in paragraph 8. According to paragraph 8, the jobs the Chinese did blank. I want a quote. What quote do you think I'm looking for here? What quote, Dylan?
The Chinese took jobs no one else would touch.
Right, no one else would touch. That's telling us they're taking the hardest jobs, the most dangerous jobs, okay? All right, now let's think of another way that they were difficult. Another reason the conditions were difficult was what? It was a nice big word. What was the other reason that things were difficult, Connor? Right, but there was a specific word besides harass. I want to use it straight from the book. It was a big word. It started with a D. Anyone remember what that word was? Mrs. Knife used the example, oh my gosh, I don't like people with blonde hair. Obviously I do. But what is it? They were blank against.
Discrimination.
Yes, discriminated. Raise your hand. Okay, another reason why do I keep on saying they instead of the? Another reason the conditions were difficult was the Chinese were discriminated against by all the other workers. Period. So let's read what we have so far. I'm gonna make this a teeny bit smaller, that way it will all fit. Let's do 26. Okay, I don't know if that helped. Let's do 24. All right, so in what ways were the conditions difficult for the Chinese worker? The conditions were difficult for the Chinese worker, flat out. I'm telling you that. One way it was difficult was because the jobs they were doing were risky and dangerous. According to paragraph 8, the jobs the Chinese did, no one else would touch. Another reason the conditions were difficult was the Chinese were discriminated against by all other workers, which we know means they weren't being nice to them. So have we answered question 1? Or the question 1 and question 2. Remember, there's 2 questions in this. Give me a thumbs up. You think we've answered it? Yeah, so let's move on. And it's going to be one big answer. Did they let the difficulties affect them? Now we're going to answer that. So I'm going to say, even though the conditions were very difficult, the Chinese, what? Did they let it affect them or did it not? If you think it did affect them, give me wait, that's not what I want to do. I don't really know how to do that. Put your hands on top of your head if you think it affected them. If you think it didn't affect them, I don't want you to have your hands up at all. It didn't affect them, right? Did they stop what they were doing because people were being mean to them? No. Did they not take the job because it was risky? No, they just kept on working, right? So even though the conditions were very difficult, the Chinese ignored it and kept working. What type of work were they doing? What's an adjective we could do to describe it? And kept working blank. What's an adjective? How were they working? Jaden? Hard. Kept working hard. Period. So, did it let them affect them? No, they ignored it and kept working hard. Wow, we have totally answered this whole question. So, are we done? No, we're not done. Of course we're not done because we need to wrap it up. We need our conclusion sentence. How could we wrap this up, conclude it? Tell me. We want to finish this up. We've answered both parts of the question, but now let's think. Could the Transcontinental Railroad been built as fast without the Chinese? No. So let's maybe say something about how important the Chinese were to the Transcontinental Railroad. That's what type of sentence I want. Let's talk about how important they were. Abigail, would you like to help me tell me how important they were?
That is how the Chinese monopolies are very
Okay, I don't want to say that is how. Let's just say the Chinese workers were very important to the building of the first transcontinental railroad. Wow, perfect. That's like, that's it. That's it. That is so good. That is a fabulous answer. If someone answered that, oh my God, I would die. I would shout for joy. Okay. So the Chinese workers were very important to building the first transcontinental railroad. What questions do we have about this practice of radar that we did? Once again, all this information literally came from our book. Okay. I didn't make up that the Chinese were important. I didn't make up that the jobs the Chinese took no one else would touch. That literally came from our book. I'm not making it up. So I need you guys to start using your book as a resource. And of course, this sentence here, wrapping it up. This sentence here, conclusion. So you really only wrote 3 sentences about the answer. And the other things are the restating and conclusion. Okay? So, as always, when you're using radar, 2 of your sentences all you have to do is say the question in a different way. All right, what questions do we have over these 2 questions? What questions do we have? All right, someone remind me, how was our story laid out? Kaden. Chronological order. That's why we made that nice big timeline together. So,
Miss
right now,
Kaminski,
yes.
can you make the question one smaller so that I can finish reading it?
I've read it to everyone. All right. Anyways, so now we have about 10 minutes left in class. You're going to have 3 choices of what you can do for the rest of reading class. No one get off yet if you're at home. Option 1. You can go back to your homework and think, hey, maybe I didn't do the best job and try to fix it, okay? That is option 1. You can go back to your homework and try to fix it, try to make it better. I haven't graded any yet. Option 2, you can AR read. Or option 3, you can reread the story. Your quiz is going to be tomorrow. We're not doing the quiz today. So regardless, you need to reread your story before tomorrow. That's your homework, but you could do that now. So 3 options. Option A, go back to your homework and fix it if you didn't do a good job. By the way, you should be separated. I should be able to tell the difference between the 2 questions. If you have one giant paragraph, that doesn't work. You need to have a enter in between your 2 sections, or at least have them numbered, number 1, number 2. So option 1, go fix your homework from yesterday. Option 2, read for AR. Option 3, reread the Transcontinental Railroad story. Those are what you should be working on. Does anyone have any questions? Mia?
I combined both of my questions into one big answer.
Well, let's fix it. Okay. Connor, what's your question?
Did you see my answer? Because I had it turned into, and then I went to edit it space it up, and then I clicked edit so I could guess.
I don't know. I'll have to check in 1 second. Eden, it clearly states on your the schedule in star if 2 classes overlap, pick one and then go to watch the recording of the other. If I were you today, I would go to social studies because all we're doing in language arts today is going over our spelling words. So if I were you, Eden, I would go to social studies. But remember, it says directly on your schedule, if 2 overlap, pick one, watch the recording of the other, okay? If you do not have any questions at home, you guys are free to go. Okay. If you have no questions, you're free to go. What's up? Yep. Everyone in here, you heard your 3 options. Do one of those 3 options. Bye, guys. Low Landon.